Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pancake Parlay, episode 101. I'm your host, The Don, and I'm here with Chatters. How are you today?
I'm good, Don. How are you?
I'm good. Pancake Parlay is a podcast where we talk about, pop culture stuff. So we talk about movies, TV shows, games, what's in the news, all that type of stuff. So let's just jump in straight into it. And what's happening with, I guess, the streaming wars, I'd officially say it is. HBO Max seems to be, coming in with original content, some new interesting stuff and old school stuff. And basically, they also struck up another deal of what they're going to be having on their service, and it's Crunchyroll. So the anime streaming
Yeah,
service, they're going to be having, they're going to be streaming pretty much their content.
yeah. Well, here's the thing, right? So Crunchyroll, I know, Crunchyroll, I think is like a piece of ass as like an anime streaming service. But over here in Australia, we have like some better ones. But Crunchyroll is kind of like the big one that everybody kind of knows about. Like, if you listen to Crunchyroll, anime reviewers, like they'll get like a Crunchyroll subscription advertisement in it. And the thing is, HBO technically owns Crunchyroll, and recently announced their full anime lineup that they're getting um, from Crunchyroll, and there's a lot of anime that you can watch from it, right? Like Full Metal Alchemist, ReZero. I think
I do know they have exclusive rights to certain shows, and also they do dubs. Like I think
Mhm.
they probably have the exclusive rights slash dubs for, like, I don't know, like Doctor Stone, I think, of the West.
Okay.
And obviously the that Isekai reviewer show, whatever it was, and that got pulled, so they held that hostage, that one. But yeah,
hmm
more or less Crunchyroll seems to kind of be the main front. However, I do know that Netflix has kind of tried also to compete in the anime Netflix space as well.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean Netflix is making a lot of original anime content, so that's gonna be
They have
helping
the new
them
Ghost
out.
in the Shell show, which I need to see still. So
Yeah, I mean, I still haven't seen Ghost in the Shell Arise. I think that was like the other thing. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the whole 3D 3D anime.
yeah, I think a
So
lot of people aren't. I think I
I
think
just
it's
got
like
a natural aversion to it.
it just looks
It's
weird.
Appleseed, like Appleseed. I don't know if you've ever watched
Yes,
that.
yes, I have. Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
sometimes it does work. It just has to have a good style. Like a recent one that I watched is Dohe Doro, um, and that one has kind
hmm
of like, it's a really weird world, but I think that it's a kind of 2D, but it's also got parts that are 3D. And I think it blends
hmm
really well.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The big thing that's happening is with Crunchyroll being a part of HBO and HBO showing anime on their platform. What use does Crunchyroll have now? Um, it used to be a platform where people used to watch anime on, but now they can watch anime on HBO Max. I think very much like how I think like DC Universe Online is, sorry, not DC Universe Online, DC the DCU app is gonna be integrated into HBO Max. I think the same is gonna be for Crunchyroll too. I think maybe they might have like some kind of pricing negotiation where you can maybe get all of HBO Max for, I don't know, I'm just going to say $15, but if you just want anime, you can pay $7.99, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than getting the whole catalog. But in the end, it might be a more value for your money if you get HBO Max, because you're going to get all the HBO shows, you're going to get the movies, you're going to get DC properties, you're going to get anime. So that's like the big bundle, much like how Disney Plus is kind of has that similar kind of mechanism where you get all the stuff, you get all the Disney live action movies, you get Star Wars, you get like their original content. You also get, I think, like National Geographic and I think ESPN as well if you're in America. So there's
Yeah,
a lot
that's
of
like a
really
solid
cool.
package. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff you get together when you get Disney Plus. It isn't just like one particular thing, but with Disney, they want to keep it all in house. I'm wondering whether, because Crunchyroll has been so used to people consuming that, like people consuming anime as just like as that, whether people will jump on or whether they will just be like, nope, you're just going to we're just going to absorb Crunchyroll into our division and it's just going to be a part of HBO Max. You can just watch anime. And there's just going to be like a separate tab called Crunchyroll, but that's all that anime, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I see that more likely happening, but
But
I
either
mean,
way, I feel like, yeah, as we mentioned before, they're gonna definitely integrate all of it because even just recently announced Doom Patrol Season 2 is coming out,
mhm,
and it said it's gonna be on the DC app, but as well as the HBO Max app.
mhm.
So I feel like I think HBO Max is kind of covering all bases when it comes to this stuff. So they're getting the anime, DC stuff. They're getting pretty much everything and they're integrating into one. And why wouldn't they? Because they've got so much different types of entertainment. It's all in one place as well. Because it's not just HBO stuff, but Warner Brothers stuff. And that's quite a big catalog.
Yeah, what we're saying is HBO, Warner Brothers, give us a advertisement deal. We'll promote
We'll
HBO.
be the first promoters in Australia, to be honest with you.
Oh man, yeah, no, but for real, it's going to be cool. I hope they do have some like a cool, I guess, release and I guess package for Australians as well. That's what I'd like to see.
Well, I
Um,
know for a fact they can't have the because didn't HBO Max they got Studio Ghibli stuff for HBO Max in America, but over here it's what is it called? Netflix has it. So it is very weird and how licenses work in different countries. So I'm wondering if they do bring it over here, what is the where they're bringing it to.
Oh, just as a just as a side note, since you brought up Studio Ghibli, so they teased like the big like new Miyazaki film that's coming out, and apparently, it's got like a higher budget than any of the previous Ghibli films, and they've only finished 36 minutes of the movie, over their 3-year production with 60 anime. So it's like they're making
Is this hand
more.
drawn?
I think so.
Because this is that's the only way that production is for that long is 100% because it's hand drawn. Because
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the documentary. I think it's called in the mouth of monsters, in the mind of monsters. It's the Studio Ghibli documentary.
Mhm.
And that's where that famous line of like, I wish anime didn't exist. But there's also a really interesting thing in that shows, and it just shows the commitment that Miyazaki has, where he basically used to go to everyone's desk and see what they drew,
Mhm.
like every single frame. And if he didn't like it, he would actually do it himself. Like, so he's one of those guys who's 100% dedicated. That if it doesn't match his vision or isn't good quality enough, he'll go back and be like, no, we're gonna do this again. So like
Yeah.
apparently the amount of frames that he's actually drawn himself is like majority of the movie, even though there's a whole studio behind it.
Yeah, like he's very much like I guess Hideo Kojima, or one of these like kind of big minds that love to get like really deep into their projects, or the guy uh who runs like Super Smash Brothers, right? I forget his name, but he's also like very much like very passionate and does a lot of the work himself. And they kind of, I mean, that's kind of how it is in like Japanese culture. They get very much like very passionate about the work that they do, and the I guess the legacy that they leave behind in the creative works that they make. So that's
Well, you
really
definitely
cool.
want that.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, not every, especially given some of the topics that we'll bring up later, like Star Wars, right? But
Always
uh,
stuff.
always Star Wars. But what one thing that is, I don't know if you heard the news about Robert Pattinson. He hasn't been working out during the shutdown, and a lot of people are like, oh well, I think like even his I think his uh, I think the studio actually has somebody who have been trying to get him to kind of stick to a diet and working out and stuff, and he's like not not sticking to it at all. And I think he even mentions, he says, yeah, if you think working if this is what he says to GQ magazine. He says, I think if you're working out all the time, you're part of the problem. You set a precedent. No one is doing this in the 70s. Even James Dean, he wasn't exactly ripped. And then he later says, literally, I'm just barely doing anything. So yeah, I think here's the thing, right? I completely get what he's saying, because you don't want to have this kind of idea of an unrealistic um, male physique or a male look in just like how the average person will think like, oh, this is what somebody is supposed to look like, because it's not necessarily realistic. Like how you see like a super ripped dude in an anime or a super ripped guy in a comic book, but this isn't supposed to be realistic. And that's
This is
my thing.
based
When
off a
people go,
comic book, which is like one of
yeah,
the most
oh yeah,
unrealistic things ever. Like the expectations
yeah.
of people's body in comic books is like probably more blown out than anything ever.
Oh yeah, exactly. And this is the thing when it comes to like fictional, I guess art and video games, movies, they're all art. People like to see things that are good looking and that are supposed to represent like the peak of human physique and structure. This is the reason why we have really muscly, good looking guys, and we have like hot women in bikini armor because it's stuff that like people want to see and people like seeing. And yeah, I totally get like yeah, he even mentioned like James Dean. Like James Dean's and like an iconic actor, but he never had to be Batman, like that. I think that's the difference here.
Yeah,
Um, and I
James
think
Dean
and
was
I think
just a cool guy. You're like,
he was a cool
and
guy.
it
Yeah.
was also probably one of those guys where like, and I think probably Ron Patterson's like it, where it's like he doesn't necessarily have to follow 100% a schedule to kind of be kind of
Mhm,
lean.
mhm.
But he's definitely not going to be big bulky
Super
muscular.
buff.
He's
Yeah.
not going to basically look like Ben Affleck. There is no way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing for me because I look at Ben Affleck and I'm like, yeah, he's like kind of that definitive like Dark Knight Returns kind of
Chunky
Batman look.
Batman.
Chunky Batman, like he's like, but it's like people were saying, oh, he looks really uncomfortable in that suit and blah blah blah. But then when you actually see him in action and all the kind of stuff that they have doing in Batman v Superman, and then even in like Justice League as well, like when he's in like a metal batsuit or something like that, like it looks really good, and he looks like Batman. And I think that's the thing. I think in the end, like I don't mind. I don't really necessarily need to have a like a super beefy Batman, but you want him to actually look like he has been fighting for a good period of his life, and he's like in Batman Begins, right? Bruce kind of goes through all this training with Ra's al Ghul, and he fights all these people, and blah blah blah. And in no point in the Dark Knight Rises and then Return. Sorry, yeah, Dark Knight Returns. I forget
The
what it
Dark
was.
Knight and the Dark Knight.
Dark Knight. Yeah, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, yeah. Dark Knight Rises. In none of those movies do you ever question whether or not Bruce has the capacity to be Batman, because you see, because of all the stuff that they set up in Batman Begins, like he goes through all this shit, and you know that he's like a capable fighter and he's a capable detective, even though he doesn't do much of detecting. That's what I'm hoping with it. It's like maybe there's a lot more uh
Less fighting,
detective work.
more actual like smarts.
Yeah,
Big
well,
brain
and that's
energy.
big brain. Yeah, big brain energy, exactly. And that's the thing. Not everything has to be like him fighting 24/7. I mean, they didn't have a lot of action scenes necessarily with Ben Affleck in Batman v Superman. Like they have like the fight in the, I guess, the warehouse where you like it was basically something straight out of like Batman, like the Batman Arkham games, which was like super cool, right? But
Mhm.
like they didn't have like a bunch of those. They had it. So it's like, as long as there's some action scenes and people are like satisfied with the way he looks. And the thing is, like we've already seen what his batsuit looks like to some capacity. So it's whether or not they're able to pull that off and to make him look like, because they can easily just CG some shit and make him look more buff or make him look more physique if they can't get him in shape. It's just obviously there's less. They just have to put a lot more effort into doing that if he kind of is in shape. And that's the thing, like you said, he's already a lean guy. Make him a lean guy, but just like play into that strength, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think and that could work really well. I do know that like I do need to see the full batsuit and how it kind of looks on him 100%, but it does look like it looks quite thin in it. And it's one
mm,
of those things where it's like he kind of does look like what is it, Night Owl, from Watchmen, right? It's kind of like, because I think the difference between Night Owl, you would say, in Watchmen and Batman is just Batman just has that, I don't know, he just looks bigger. Well, Night Owl's kind of very more leaner, but that's kind of like a personal preference
mm.
of what it looks
Well,
like.
I think personally, I think what it may come out to be like is how Batman looked like when Nightwing, so Dick Grayson took on the mantle of Batman for a little bit during Grant Morrison's run. It's kind of like, obviously, like Batman doesn't, he like Nightwing isn't like a skinny dude, but he's like a skinnier kind of dude, right? He's not like a bulk guy. He's kind of like he's like, obviously, like he's an acrobat, so his um his look in the Batsuit is a lot more different than if it's someone like Bruce Wayne. Although most of the time, because it's a comic book, you can't tell anyways, because it's just like a fucking superhero costume. So yeah, like I think that's what he might look like. I think in the end, like if they just kind of they put the padding in the right place, if they put use CGI in the right place, it might look good. Like already the direction of like the Batsuit looks kind of a bit crazy as it is, because it's obviously got like the weird kind of middle section, and stuff like that. But I'm not against it. I'm not, and like even the Batmobile, like we said, like it looks like something out of Fast and Furious, and you know what? That's not necessarily a bad thing, because this isn't supposed to be like the bit. When I say Batman Begins, it technically is, but it's like it's not supposed to be late into his career or midway into his career. It's supposed to be like an early Batman story. So it's fine that he hasn't got everything. He hasn't got like a Lucius Fox like developing all his tech for him. He doesn't have Morgan Freeman like
it's Batman Year Zero.
Yeah, in a sense, right? So yeah, like I'm totally
Either way,
fine.
yeah. As if we talked about before, I'm okay with this different type of Batman, because like I feel like with DC characters, I think with pretty much like obviously the main one, Batman and Superman, you've seen a lot of iterations of it, and it's like one of those things where it's like you can kind of pull elements from them and kind of be like, okay, you can have this type of Batman or that type of Batman, and it's okay to see that. Like obviously, even something like the Joker, like we've seen many iterations, and more or less each individual one has had a different impact and slightly different look through it. And I think that's what maybe like something like a Marvel lacks almost, because it's kind of like they need to follow. It's in since it's in the same universe, and there's if they're going to recast, it has to have that same kind of tone. But with this, even the more and more I talk about it, because there was even rumors, or like they were talking about Batman v Superman. Andy Serkis was saying that there's going to be a darker film, and raw and all this type of stuff. So I feel like this is going to be it could be like another Joker situation where maybe there isn't going to be too much fighting, but it's going to be a very psychological, maybe detective story, with the guy dressed up as a bat.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's got to be action in it, because otherwise there's no point of having Batman in the bat, right? There's got to be him like scaring the shit out of people, like coming out of shadows, and he's in the suit and scaring people. Like yeah, like that's kind of supposed to be how Batman is. And like, look, we've already got Bernard from Westworld. He's like Commissioner Gordon, so like yeah, he's got to do the whole classic like disappearing act on Commissioner Gordon, which is just like a staple for a Batman comic. But that's the thing with this. Like, what I don't want this to become is something like what Margot Robbie's kind of done with Harley Quinn, right? Where they let they let the actors have too much reign. Like the other comparison would probably be what is it, Jennifer Lawrence Mystique, right? They gave way too much power into letting Jennifer Lawrence just choose how she wanted to portray the character. Oh, I don't want to wear like the makeup and I don't want to look the part. And then she actually just looks so discount in like the last film. And they killed her off because obviously she kind of didn't want to be there anymore. Because obviously it must be annoying to like, wear the makeup and takes like several hours to put it on and stuff. But like that's supposed to be the role that you got paid to. But because she's such a big name, they kind of let her run away with the character and do whatever she wants. And that's how I kind of feel with the Harley Quinn movie. Margot Robbie was given the option to choosing to make Harley like being more of a anti-hero rather than like I guess like a more like a chaotic neutral villain in a way.
Because I guess it's quite a hard sell to sell a villain.
Yeah, but it's like that's the thing, right? Like all the characters in the latest what is it, Harley Quinn movie or Birds of Prey movie, they're all superheroes. They're all like good guys, right? It's like they should have just made this with Catwoman, Poison Ivy, and you could have put like again, we've been watching the Harley Quinn TV series, and it's absolutely great. Like if they had have turned that into a movie in some capacity, and to be fair, like the show actually deals with Harley breaking up with the Joker as well. Obviously, they couldn't have Jared Leto come back as the Joker for obvious reasons. But they could have done something similar to what they did with that show, and it would have been way better than what they eventually released. And I just don't want there to be a situation where studios capitulate to the actors like they are now. Well, again, like I don't think Robert Pattinson is doing anything necessarily bad. Like it's not. I just hope that they don't just be like, oh, well, we'll let him get away with this, and then he wants to not also do this thing or that thing. But again, like I have, and it leads to like a similar situation. However, I've heard he's a really good actor, and I'm gonna put my faith in the fact that other people have said that his recent movies have been pretty good. I haven't seen him, so I can't judge for it
Yeah,
myself.
I've seen them. Like he is very much one of those indie type actors these days. He did The Lighthouse, which is quite interesting. I probably didn't like it that much, but I know that a lot of people were just like, "This is a really great movie."
Well, what about
Um,
his acting in it?
yeah, his acting's really good in it as well.
Well, that's
Yeah,
all that matters to
that's
me.
all that matters.
So long as he pulls off the acting, they have stunt doubles that can play him in a different suit at certain angles. It's fine. They can get it to work. I just want a good Batman movie. That's very, very true to the Batman mythos, I guess. And since we can't have uh, uh, Ben Affleck, maybe we can kind of spur something for DC to make something good out of it. But I guess to follow up, so all the stuff that's been happening between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, um, obviously there's instances of domestic abuse, but due to the fact that there's been a lot of like new evidence coming into play about how it could be Amber Heard who's been abusing Johnny Depp and like maybe lying to the courts about like some of the stuff that's been happening, including allegedly painting bruises on her. She could face 3 years of imprisonment. And if she's found guilty, obviously that's going to impact her ability to work in Aquaman 2. So that's the kind of state of things. Again, it always really sucks when there are cases like this that kind of impact like the movie industry and like movies in general. I think a similar thing is happening with like Jeremy Renner at the moment, because obviously they want to do like a Hawkeye series or a Hawkeye movie or something or other, but now he's kind of like engaged in his own kind of I guess like domestic uh, assault case as well. So it's like I think it's like a wait and see that's currently happening in Disney about whether or not they're going to move on with some kind of show there. But yeah, like it's kind of crazy. So yeah, they might go to jail. What's your thoughts about it?
Well, yeah. Firstly, like the rumor is that she might go to jail, um, which you can't just fake up a crime. So that's number one. I think that the other stuff as well when we're talking entertainment side of things is that um, it's like at that point they do have to fire her for like her upcoming roles, for example, like a mirror in Aquaman, because obviously if she's going to jail, or even then, taking different sides, because Warner Brothers also has Johnny Depp as one of their main stars in the Fantastic Beasts Harry Potter films. So
Hmm.
there's all like, and I'm assuming there's some they're going to be working some of this stuff out. And I do hope
Yeah.
that like and that's the thing, they've kept on Johnny Depp even throughout the allegations, to keep him playing the villain. So at least I think maybe it favors more or less Johnny Depp's side. And
Well, I thought they more or less put the movie on, right? Like because of all the stuff that's been happening.
that I'm not
So
quite sure on, but I do know that they never officially said he's fired. The real question is like obviously Disney fired him from the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise.
but
And
aren't
now
they being,
and now they're trying to reboot it with a female version of like a Johnny Depp Jack Sparrow character,
what you see
which is
ah
just
you see
really
so,
bad.
well, you see, here's the thing. From what I understand, apparently, like Pirates of the Caribbean, like the original Pirates of the Caribbean, is actually based on a female character. So that's who the character is going to be. So I wonder whether or not, like, because I think the actress, I forget her name. She's in um, Jumanji, like the redhead.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
she
like,
plays the Gamora's sister in Guardians of the Galaxy. The Yeah,
oh,
she's
does
like
she?
Scottish. Yeah, she's Scottish. Yeah, that's her. The what's
Oh,
the Nebula? Yeah, that's
Nebula.
Nebula. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's her. Yeah,
Oh, I never knew that. You see, I kept hearing that how she was in like the Marvel universe. I'm like, which character she is? Like, and now it makes a lot more sense that she's Nebula, and I couldn't tell because she's been
makes
a
sense.
robot for yeah, she's been a purple blue robot for most of the movie. But yeah, apparently like they were eyeing like her to play that character from Pirates of the Caribbean. Look, I just hope that look, let's wait and see like what all the evidence is behind what's been happening between these two. Obviously, when all the stuff happened, initially they're saying, oh, Johnny's to blame and he should go to jail, but now it's like the opposite way. It's like let the court decide. Hopefully there's enough evidence, and hopefully the people win, and hopefully like whoever everybody comes out of it all right. But speaking of I guess Disney and the movies that are Taika Waititi is apparently going to be directing a new Star Wars movie. They're putting this guy on everything, isn't it?
Yeah, I
And
think Hollywood really loves him at the moment.
yeah, and I mean, to be fair, like he did direct, what is it? Thor, not
Well,
not
he's
Ragnarok.
gonna do that, but Thor Ragnarok.
Thor
And
Ragnarok, yeah,
technically he did direct like one episode of what is it, Mandalorian,
Mandalorian. Mhm.
which is the one where they punch Baby Yoda in the face, which
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
which is very much like his random like shtick of funny.
yeah, and yeah, and I think people, he did Jojo Rabbit, right? Or
Yes,
am I
I haven't
thinking?
watched that
Yes,
yet, but and then
I
the
haven't
Hunt for
watched
the
it
Wilder
either.
People.
Yeah, I mean those movies don't really interest me, but yeah, like yeah, like I think people obviously like his films, and so it makes sense that obviously I guess Disney Disney Star Wars division needs talent to direct their films, which hasn't been happening so far. So kind of makes sense that they want someone to have like a fresh look and someone who can actually like do a film and do a good job at it. So it makes sense that they're getting him like lined up to do the next one. It'd just be interesting, like what the situation will be, because obviously, he's got Love and Thunder coming out. Is he going to be doing another movie? Is he going to be doing another Marvel after that, or is he going to be going straight to Star Wars and then like kind of jumping off the whole doing a Thor movie now?
Hmm.
That's going to be the interesting part of it. But at the same time, they did confirm the announcement that Leslie Headland, who was the I think the Russian Doll writer or producer or whatever, is confirmed to be helming a new Star Wars series. So we mentioned that earlier, that there were rumors about it, but it's actually confirmed now, like alongside Taika Waititi's yeah, news of directing a new Star Wars movie as well. So yeah, that's confirmed too. I don't know. I'm a bit iffy about
I
like
feel like
because I think
the project probably jumped the gun too much. Like it like obviously, for example, when they announced the Mandalorian, we kind of knew what it was going to be about. The what is it, the Obi-Wan show, like we kind of understand what it was going to be about. This one, it just feels like it's a very like this new Star Wars. I feel like, or there are certain parts of the new Lucasfilm that feels a little bit weird, where it's like obviously we know what's going to happen with Mandalorian and probably Obi-Wan. But then there's like, for example, high society. Well, I forgot what it was called.
the High Republic.
High Republic, and then this project. There's nothing. Like we don't like aside from knowing that. Oh yeah, it's just a female driven Star Wars thing. There's no like concept and idea, and I find it's very weird to announce something and talk about something that's the main premise / idea. Majority of the times, if you like, for example, the main pitch from the Mandalorian is probably like, it probably was, it was just like, okay, we want something about bounty hunters, yeah,
Bounty
and
Hunter, Boba Fett. People love Boba Fett. He looks like Boba Fett.
Probably around this time, probably around this time period, it makes sense. This one, it doesn't give us anything. We don't know what time period, what it's about. Is it going to have Jedi? Is it going to have bounty hunters? We don't know.
Yeah, all we know is it's being, I guess, developed by Leslie Headland, and that's about it.
Which I don't know. We're supposed to care about, like sure.
I
If
mean, you've seen Russian Doll. I haven't yet, but
yeah, I've seen Russian Doll. I thought, as I said, I thought it was pretty damn good. But it's like it's not one of those things where it's like, for example, Taika Waititi. I feel like that's more of a bigger deal because like he's more out there and he has more name recognition. It's like if someone said, yeah, it's like if someone said Quentin Tarantino is doing something, then you're like, okay, shit, like I got to pay attention.
Well,
no one knows who Leslie Headland is. Only in the past like month. That's the only reason.
Yeah, she's I mean, I didn't hear about news coming out that she's going to be directing something. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, at the moment, like it's all over the place when it comes to the Star Wars division. Not to say that like the Marvel division's like got it all sorted as well. Like Rob Liefeld, he's the creator of Deadpool.
Deadpool and Cable. Yep, here we go.
Yeah. He I think on social media and stuff he was vented his frustrations about the fact that there's like Marvel has had will put forward zero plans for a Deadpool 3. Now obviously he's got a self-interest in it. You know, it's his baby. He wants more Deadpool on the big screen, so it makes sense that he's upset about it. But yeah, like, obviously Disney's acquisition of Fox has meant that, like, there hasn't been any big news about, like, anything X-Men related, and I guess including Deadpool, because who knows when there's going to be a new X-Men movie coming out, let alone a Deadpool movie. Because if they're going to try and align it, because I mean, I could imagine, like, maybe they start doing X-Men and then they do a Deadpool movie, and then Deadpool makes a quip about, wow, it took so long between Deadpool 2 and 3. You'd think Disney would have it together or something. Like, I could imagine them doing like a that and making fun of, like, why it took so long. But in the meantime, it's not going to be super fun for all the people that want to see a new Deadpool, because there's still a lot of stories that they can still do about it. It's just, what's the situation there? And I think it's the same thing with what's going on with Star Wars, because yeah, like with they're supposed to release like the Obi-Wan series, and oh well, that stopped, and this was like before coronavirus
The virus.
stuff, right? No, we can call it corona. We
Either
can
way,
name the beast now.
either way, I'm gonna call it the virus. It sounds more scary.
Right. Oh yeah, the virus. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but yeah, it's with the whole Deadpool thing. I feel like obviously, Disney and Marvel's kind of said what their slate is for the next, like, under 3-4 years, and none of that seems to be anything about X-Men, Fantastic Four, or like even Deadpool. And that's the thing. They want the universe to be the exact same. So what they probably will do is maybe new to Deadpool, but even then, I think his comments were, it's each film had like about a 2-year gap. So you kind of had that name recognition, and it's like Deadpool, the name being out there. If things are going to happen the way it is, like the Deadpool 2 came out 2018, like something like that. So then you plus an extra 3 years on top of that, 4 years on top of that. It's been a long time. So I think it's one of those strategies of, like, what is it, like Avatar? Like, does anyone really care about Avatar 2? And it's like, it's going to be those things in the future. Do people really care about Deadpool in like 3-4 years time? Like, is Ryan Reynolds going to get too old? And it's like it's this whole thing.
Well, yeah, I think that's my concern as well. Like, not that I have anything wrong with like actors getting old, right? But the problem is, like, yeah, like, we want to have people in their prime and spitting out as many Batman, Superman, Iron Man movies as you can that are good quality, right? You want the good quality movies to come out. And if they don't have it, like, it's unfortunate that it might be the case that it doesn't fall into Marvel's plan, and maybe they might have to get someone else to come and be Deadpool. But I don't see that happening either, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, everything like you said with Marvel, they have like a small, like, it's kind of like a mini arc, right? At the moment, where they're setting up what's going to be like the bigger event. Like, they might have like a Civil War 2 event with, since Captain Marvel's going to be the main focus because there's no Captain America. So it makes sense that, she's going to be the I guess the the hyper moral character, which is what Captain America is, versus the, I guess, the I don't know. It's all over the place, right? But that's the role that they kind of that's the kind of role she played in the Civil War 2 arc, which was essentially which is basically Minority Report, right? And should we use technology to predict people's actions and futures, which also will play a role when we talk about Westworld too. But with all the stuff that's happening at Marvel and Star Wars and stuff, like I said, like Star Wars, Obi-Wan was supposed to have a series, now that's cancelled, or on hold, so to speak, right? You've got like the Cassian Andor film, which series, which, to be fair, can be interesting. I think like him and K2SO were probably the better parts of Rogue One, a Star Wars story, anyways. So that's
they're the only characters I remember the names of, really.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I don't even remember the Jin Erso. That's her name. I say I don't remember, then I did. Yeah, K2SO, like, I tend to remember him because he's a pretty cool, like, he's got attitude. He's got something memorable, which is something that lacks out of a lot of the new kind of Disney Star Wars. I think that's the thing. Disney doesn't want to be have their era of films referred to as Disney Star Wars. because that is like a really bad distinction that
Yeah,
people
they just want
place
to
on the
be
show.
like, this is Star
Star
Wars.
Wars, right? Yeah,
But the problem is that it's always going to be compared to the originals,
exactly.
because they're just so much better. If and the whole thing is like, the only way to override it is literally just be like, I'm just going to make a good product with good characters that people love, and
Hmm.
they tried to do that, but they were focusing on the wrong things and completely failed
Well,
on it.
well, exactly. Like, we've talked about it so much, but here's the thing: they like even recently, one of the lead Lucasfilm story group creatives, like the leader of it, like how we mentioned, like the High Republic and all those kind of stuff. Matt Martin, he told fans to chill when it came to Star Wars canon because, quote, it's all fake anyway. Um, and I hear this and I think, okay, like I get that, like, this is on Twitter, by the way. So, he was reply again, all these kind of big headlines come up on Twitter, and people obviously like spur and make it a big thing even though it isn't. But like, this guy's an actual like writer for Star Wars, right? And so in the Twitter post, he says, to summarize, there's a reason we need to internally know what is and isn't canon so we can keep um, our line of official storytelling as aligned as possible. But that doesn't mean fans can't individually pick and choose what they want to accept as true. It's all fake anyways. You can choose to accept whatever you want as a part of the story. That just sounds like the most stupidest thing I could ever hear, and it sounds like something that when you know that your stories are bad, you want to have this. You want to make it so that, oh, well, anything's canon or everything's canon or nothing's canon. It's all made up. But it's like the whole reason why people get invested in characters in Harry Potter, because they know that Harry Potter's parents are dead and he's kind of had to struggle to be a wizard and stuff like that. If all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, Harry's parents are alive, actually, you can also think that his um parents aren't dead, and I don't know, like instead of Harry, Ron, and Hermione, there's like a fourth character called Brad. Like, Brad's there as well. Like, you
Brad's
know
the
what I
best
mean? Like,
character now.
yeah, but yeah, Brad's a big character. That's what I'm saying. Like, there being some kind of canon, there isn't a story. There isn't a story arc. Even there isn't a hero's journey if there isn't some kind of story structure that gets people from A to B. You just make it like, especially when it's called. There's a difference when there's like, okay, there's obviously knowledge that we don't know about. Like, oh, hey, Harry's favorite ice cream color is strawberry and not vanilla. Like, okay, yeah, like that doesn't ruin the story if like you find out like really trivial information, but stuff like, oh, like Luke being, sorry, Darth Vader being Luke's father. If they just change that, it's like, oh, well, it's not important, right? It's not critical to the story anymore because it's all fake anyways. Well, what does it matter? Like, again, this is the mindset of people who are
It's the wrong
quote unquote
attitude.
quote unquote the Lucasfilm story group creative executives. This is what's coming out of their mouths, and people wonder why people like don't like Star Wars anymore, because these are the people who like it's the same people who will say, hey, you don't need to love everything, like it's all whatever, you're getting too invested in it. But then they complain that nobody likes their stuff. Oh, why don't you like our stuff?
Or they say it's really important for a certain group to like our stuff, or inclusive to them, and it's like it doesn't work in that particular way. Like, and it even just back to the point of it's all made up anyways. It shows their mindset of, instead of thinking about the individual product, like it could be like media or a picture, basically art. Instead of
Mm,
focusing on what they want to do with it, as an individual piece or an individual thing, what they're looking at it as it is how will it impact the outside world. And I think that's the clear distinction of where they're looking for. But instead of saying, oh yeah, we want to follow, like, we want it to be successful, all this, or like, we want it to have a good story and this is how it gets successful, essentially they're focusing on the wrong thing of, maybe they're just like, okay, how do we want this to be portrayed in, or look at the outside world and how the outside world looks at it.
well, here's the
You
thing.
could say
I
like,
think.
oh yeah, like we need like the whole thing, the joke thing right now is like the female Star Wars project, where it's like, essentially the whole, instead of planning it to be like, we want a Star Wars thing about this particular thing to have this concept slash idea, it's more like, how does this affect the outside world outside of Star Wars? Because Star
Well, I
Wars is
think
fake. Okay, we need a all-female Star Wars thing because we haven't had that in Star Wars, so let's do that. Like, you see how
well,
they base everything off actual outside world stuff rather than internal universe.
Well, I think what you're getting at is important. Like, but instead of what you're saying outside world, it's how do we maximize our profits and try and um I guess like gain fandom in in quadrants that don't typically enjoy Star Wars films. Like again, a lot of kind of comic books, a lot of video games are all primarily driven by I guess the male demographic. Like men typically buy comics, consume Star Wars, etc. Obviously, over time, there's been a lot of crossover because there's been a lot more men and women who are all enjoying video games. Marvel in particular, Marvel Comics has been huge fandoms kind of breaking out from this kind of stuff. But I don't think they've obviously had it in something like Star Wars, and they've been trying to do that with something like the new Star Wars series. But nobody respects Ray. No self-respecting Star Wars person enjoys Ray as a main character. Nobody likes Finn. Nobody likes what's the other guy? I don't even remember
Or
his name. Yeah, Poe. Edgar Allan Poe. Nobody likes that guy.
and it's a real
Um,
funny if you look at all the characters that people do like. It's like Kylo Ren. It's even like the
and even
actual
he's not that
the
good.
Mando himself, like the Mandalorian, aside from Baby Yoda, of course, or like or we've talked about the droids, like
Yeah.
in Rogue One. So it's like it's these characters that like aren't the mains, or they are,
Well,
but they're
but here's the
or
thing.
they're very different. They're not the what they want to target.
Well, again, yeah, like it just comes from the fact that they just don't know what the crux is. It's just like they're just trying to they're like a golem trying to emulate um a like a person, but they don't have like what's at heart, the true thing that people enjoy about like maybe Star Wars or the Star Wars series, or the characters. And that's the thing. In the end, there's some nuggets of some really good stuff that are coming out of these Disney films, but they don't holistically build up into something that's a product that people enjoy as a whole, which is the reason why people don't like um, the Star Wars movies, the Disney Star Wars movies. Like I don't even necessarily believe all the user ratings on Rotten Tomatoes because there is historic precedent for there being like mass negative reviews, but also mass industry led positive reviews sent by bots as well. Like you look at all these the responses on what is it, The Last Skywalker, and you see heaps of people saying, "Oh, this is a great end to the franchise." Like, no, no, it is. One, no, it isn't. And why are there thousands of people saying this exact same line over and over again? Like, yeah, again, nobody believes that this shit is true. And this is why Star Wars is going into the gutter. Now, luckily enough, there are people who are taking care of Star Wars and are taking it in a direction that's good, and that's Dave Filoni. Um, and I think there is going to be more input given by I think George Lucas as well, because he's obviously been helping in a I guess uh, in a role in like the Mandalorian as well. And so with something like the Mandalorian, they're going in the correct direction. I haven't seen the latest Clone Wars series, but hopefully we'll best watch it by next week and we can give a review on that. But one of the big news that came out is Jango Fett actor Tamura Morrison is playing Boba Fett in The Mandalorian season 2. Now, I think that's a good idea, but I know you have um, some hot takes about this, Don.
Yes, I do. My whole thing is like, yeah, the actor's cool. It's really cool to have him like as in the father playing the son, but technically they're all clones. And yeah,
Mhm.
either way, that's pretty funny and pretty confusing. But it's not the main reason why I don't like it. It is, I think,
Mhm.
for me, the main reason is I just don't like. Yeah, and I think it's a thing that came back to criticism of the prequels. Um, it just makes the world feel much smaller, especially the Star Wars universe. Like, can you have like a Mandalorian show without having like Boba Fett? Like, or like my whole thing is like I don't want Boba Fett to overshadow the Mandalorian because it's
Mhm.
like, or if he's gonna be there, at least bring him for like maybe like a season and kind of disappear, and because we know his kind of adventure slash journey. However, like we still want to build up the original character of the Mandalorian that they've started to reveal. Like like throughout that first season, you got to understand
Mhm.
more and more about him. You got to see his face and things like that. So I don't want to detract from the main character of the show and just have this fan favorite character that everyone knows to come in,
Well,
take the spotlight.
well, here's the thing. I think here's the thing uh, with Tamura Morrison. Yeah, people really like him. I think like obviously they as much as people maybe don't like the Clone Wars as like a movie, they don't hate him playing like but like Jango Fett was one of the cooler characters coming out of the
The
prequel
prequels, man,
movies,
that
right?
the jetpack with the missile, well, yeah.
Jetpack missile is kind of like the proto Boba Fett. You see more Boba Fett out of his character than you ever see Boba Fett doing in the actual movies, right? Because obviously there's a lot of like kind of lore and myth about how he was supposed to have like a bigger role, but then they didn't they either cut it out or they couldn't fit it in. So he just kind of like died being eaten by a plant. But I think this is the thing. This like canonically for a while it was said that Boba Fett managed to get out of the creature that ate him up, and this is kind of the continuation of it. There's been a lot of prediction. I think even I said, uh, back when we were watching The Mandalorian, that like that character that we see like in one of the episodes might have been Boba Fett, so maybe Boba Fett might be coming in season two. And I remember mentioning it, and now that it's more or less confirmed that they're having it. But I think the other thing that this kind of gives access to, because Dave Filoni's basically been like, well, I want to bring all my characters from the Clone Wars series and bring them into this show. We're getting Ahsoka. We're getting I forget the other. There's like another character
Oh
who
yeah,
I think
yeah. They cast Katie Sackhoff for that as well. Yeah, so
yeah.
they
Yeah,
it's basically he's moved on to the Clone Wars. That's ended. So he's like, you know what? I'm gonna bring all this
and
to
bringing it
live
all.
action into Mandalorian.
But here's the thing: what this gives the option and idea of, because I think we're also getting, I think Ezra, who is the main character from uh, uh what is it,
What,
the
Rebels?
Rebels, yeah, Rebels. I think he might be in the Mandalorian season 2 as well, but we just don't know which actor or whatever is in it. There's like I think there were talks about that too. So like yeah, it makes sense. Like Ahsoka's obviously older, and is like taking the role as being his uh, like master or something like that. Although she's not technically a Jedi and all that kind of stuff, so they're all obviously going to deal with that. But I think the other thing that this gives option to, like maybe this might be like a bait and switch where like we think Boba's going to be in it, but maybe Tamura might be or Morrison might be playing a clone, because there is some of the clones from the previous movies who like survived and like Rex and stuff like that. So he could be playing like a clone as well, and hanging out with those guys, and that's supposed to be like a bit of a throwback. So they don't just have him playing like Boba Fett. Maybe they might be having him play like a good guy and playing a clone, or maybe the big reveal is maybe Boba is dead and he's like taken on the mantle of Boba, or some crazy shit like I could imagine them doing some pretty cool, interesting things where like yeah, people get Boba Fett, but then maybe they might it's like kind of like the change that people don't
It's
expect.
not the real Boba Fett, so it's kind of okay. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like and also another fun thing about the Mandalorian news is that they also it was kind of stealthily announced, but I feel like this
Mhm.
is a much bigger deal than actual Taika Waititi directing and all this stuff. Is
Oh, what
Robert
is it?
Rodriguez is directing an episode of The Mandalorian.
Yes, I
Um,
did see that too.
and to me, I'm like, I love Robert Rodriguez. All the way to Sin City, to Desperado, to Alita Battle Angel. Like I always loved his work.
Mhm.
And he's directing an episode of Mandalorian, so it's really cool to him to at least do that because he shoots some amazing action scenes. So I can't wait to see what he actually does with this show, and maybe it's gonna be the Mando with, like, as we mentioned, all these new characters. It feels like this is like the new ensemble for this show, including the forgot her name, but the old shock doc trooper that was in
Oh
season
yeah,
one.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
basically just going to be all of them, going on adventures to figure out what's the deal with the Baby Yoda character.
Hey, and look, I'm totally okay with that because again, in Dave Filoni, I trust. Right, I don't trust any of these
Well, it's Dave Filoni
other
and John Favreau, like
and John
basically those
Favreau,
two.
yeah,
Those
and
two are
George
just like
Lucas as well.
Yes.
Yeah, all these people actually care about Star Wars. So yeah, I look forward to them coming out with some new things and some other positive. You see, it's not all negative Star Wars news today, but we also have confirmation. I think last week that Jedi Fallen Order is the start of a new franchise of Star Wars video games coming out of EA, which is really cool. Like they took their time and made a lot of shitty games in between, but it's good to see that they are kind of confirmed, like, hey, yeah, we are getting a Jedi Fallen Order 2. And yeah, like, again, like, it was a really great game. It's one of the better games that came out of last year. Obviously, it's not perfect. There's like problems here and there with like some glitching and stuff, but I think it's a great start. And I think the ensemble cast that you develop in this game, like, it kind of reminds me, like, yeah, they did want to make Mass Effect essentially be a Star Wars story, but they couldn't get all the rights for Star Wars, so they made Mass Effect. And this kind of feels like, oh, they're building a bigger world and a world for you to explore, and but it's just like the gameplay is just like Souls, but Star Wars, and that's what it is. So I'm really happy to hear that they officially announced that that's going to go forward. Yeah, have you played it, Don? I keep forgetting whether you have or have.
I haven't. It's on the list, but yeah,
You got to do
I've
it.
seen the gameplay. It pretty much seems to be definitely up my alley, and especially with EA, I would say has dropped the ball quite a bit when it comes to I guess the Star Wars license and the Star Wars games, because they've only released two, and it's literally been Battlefront one and two, and number one didn't even have a single player. So like I'm glad that this game is actually good and received well. I just want more projects like this. This is kind of like I do kind of want to see that 1313 game as well, a third person shooter based game,
Bounty hunter
to at least come out for whatever consoles they have. So
Well,
yeah,
I think definitely they will be able to do something that may be outside. Like, look, again, that's what the Mandalorian kind of showed, right? Like the first season didn't have Jedi's in it. The new one will, but the first season didn't, and people loved it. So it kind of shows that yes, we are able to grab the attention of people using ideas and concepts that aren't traditionally Star Wars with like big laser sword fights. We can just have people be like gritty and dirty, like underworld stories. And I think you can do it for a video game. It's just whether or not they have the will to make one. I think people will definitely be behind it if they do. It's just, yeah, like, I mean, Lucasfilm came out with a lot of really Star Wars games back in the day, and so we'll have to see going forward whether they do make it. But speaking of video games in general, they Epic um, revealed the new Unreal Engine 5. I don't know if you've seen this, but I thought it looked really cool, like some of the new potential that they can do with the next gen consoles. Because I think the video that they had was a real gen engine running on a PlayStation 5 as well.
yes, whatever they officially call it. And
Oh yeah, well, I think they're probably just PS. They're not going to go with the Xbox naming conventions.
it's like, why stop now? But yeah, it looked very interesting. I'm still one of those people where clearly this is a tech demo. Like, it doesn't have like obviously it doesn't have like mechanics of like an actual game. We've seen this many times before with something like a Watch Dogs, where they have the kind of a semi gameplay faux thing where they promise something.
I see,
but then they're just like, oh wait, we can't do this because all the code that we put in, we have to slim it down.
I see. The difference with that is Watch Dogs could look like that. It's just not on a console. It looked like that on a PC, and only when people were able to like modify, like, because they purposely changed the PC release to look in line with the console release, because they obviously didn't want to make themselves look bad, but even though they did it anyways. With something like Watch Dogs, that was like the actual game. This is the game engine. I think all the stuff that they're able to do is really cool, like dynamic lighting, being able to have more, I guess. Oh well, they call them triangles. I had a good laugh like all the time.
That's the meme now. It's all about the triangles.
All about the triangles. Like like every pixel is like one triangle. It's like, oh well, I guess that is pretty impressive.
It's like, what the
probably
hell's
means
that?
a lot more. Yeah, exactly. Like it probably, but like other big news that came out was they announced that you know, basically for people who make video games, using the Unreal Engine is basically free if you're a indie game developer, and you don't owe Epic anything until your game earns $1 million. Which is kind of insane because you know, again, like so the current model is that if your game makes $1 million in its lifetime, only then do you owe Epic some kind of reparations for using their engine. Prior to that, it used to be that uh, I think if your game made like 30,000 a quarter, um, you had to pay uh, EA something, sorry,
Mm,
not EA, Epic
Epic.
Games something. Sorry, so all these companies kind of sound the same sometimes, but yeah, like you have to. That's when you have to pay something for using their engine. So I think again, it's very um, developer friendly. It allows people to maybe even just play around with the engine and maybe become more interested in doing video game development because again, you're not restricted to being like, oh, I have to pay for Unity or I have to do this. Even though I've heard Unity is a really good engine, and yeah, like again, not shitting on any of these other engines, I think it's a really good um, business model to have for people to use, especially when they're like really complicated, like the ones on this. Like, yeah, you just give people the access to it, and they can go and make cool games if they want. And if it succeeds, great. If it doesn't, oh well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and it's like I think game development. It's like it's become harder, more intense, but at the same time, I've heard that a lot of the different engines they make it a lot more easier, where they've kind of got pre-built kind of stuff that you can kind of put in there. Like even for example, like that Bright Memory game that was shown as the Xbox event, as well as I think it's on Steam. It's made by one guy from China. I don't know how true that is, but you look at that game and you look how everything plays. I'm like, and it's like made by one guy. Clearly, there's a lot of kind of preset stuff kind of made. But yeah, going back to that trailer, obviously there's a really good marketing slash selling ploy. Because obviously the next generation is coming up. There's going to be a lot of different, you know, developers trying to come in and seeing what they can. Because obviously you got the Epic Game Engine, and you got all these different types of game engines, and it's like a secondary model of gaming on top of all this. Because
mhm.
yeah, and then it's just gonna be like who gets the most out of the licensing and stuff like that. So this was, whatever they showed and they talked about is 100% for to see, like, it's for the game developers like, look, it's easy, it's gonna look good, and get onto our system. Because I think what will also happen is when they do this, there's gonna be, I would assume there's gonna be maybe a contract, especially for PC, that's gonna be in the Epic Game Launcher. Like I feel like that's where they want to capitalize on things. They want to be like, you use that engine, and then when you get to this point, Epic Game Launcher, your game's gonna be on Steam on Epic Game Launcher. I feel like that's the long term gain. I think that's what they're
Well,
playing
yeah.
for.
Well, I mean, definitely because they want people to kind of move away using Steam as a platform, and using Epic. Like Epic's been the biggest, like EA's Origin couldn't put a dent in Steam's marketplace. Like it didn't get them to change anything that they're doing. It was only until Epic came into the market that Steam actually was like, oh well, let's actually do some quality of life improvements for Steam. Like Steam still has like a bunch of features that shits all over Epic anyways, but still, like it's actually getting them to be like, oh, we can't just like sit complacently and let the competition come up with ways to entice a player base. And look, to be fair, they're doing a pretty good job because they're releasing a bunch of free games. Now, there's been some leaks about how the next uh, Epic Game Store game might be Grand Theft Auto 5, but again, like it's kind of like there was some screenshots that came out and people
I think it's pretty much confirmed. Like
yeah, I mean,
I would say it's coming out.
well, again, I'm not going to I'm not going to say whether it's definitive or not. These are just rumors until they actually happen. But yeah, I mean GTA 5 for free, that's crazy.
Yeah,
It's gonna
especially for a game
shoot
that
up.
came out like what, nearly 10 years ago, and it's still got a big active player base. Like
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why that they're doing it. Like one, it's a good way for them to launch Grand Theft Auto on their platform to be like, hey, like let's oh, we finally have it on the platform. But then at the same time, like it also gives life back to Grand Theft Auto 5, where people are going to play and obviously Rockstar are going to get their income through like shark cards, which again we're supposed to be a parody of in-game app purchases, but people buy it, so I find it extra hilarious.
I
So yeah,
also find it also really funny because apparently GTA 5 has actually seen a spike recently without this even free stuff because apparently the thing online is that there's a war between aliens. There's a green alien and purple alien.
mm.
And it's kind of like a Bloods and Crips but in GTA where they dress up in like these alien morph suits and beat people up with baseball bats. So like that
Okay,
so apparently
okay.
that's the new thing on GTA Online. Um
Hey,
and then yeah,
that's fine.
and that's what I love about it. It's like I don't know if you ever played the online, but it's just sometimes
I
it can
played a
be
little bit.
complete chaos and it's fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like especially with GTA initially, and obviously GTA still has issues with like hacking and stuff. Like that's my problem. Like the online, you see, with me with GTA 5, I just wanted like more content, single player content, and they never got incentivized to do that because people just wanted all the multiplayer stuff. So yeah, I mean, I look, honestly, I can't blame them. It's a good incentive to do that. But yeah, I think I'm more looking forward to GTA 6 whenever that comes out, since they're done with Red Dead Redemption 2. But yeah, I mean, look, to be fair, maybe I might pick it up when it comes up. Well, I
It's
mean, I'm
free. It's
definitely pick.
free.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I mean, I'm
it's
definitely. Yeah, okay. Let's face it. I'm definitely picking.
like I have the
Um,
game already,
yeah,
but it's free. I might as well get another copy of it.
yeah. But I meant more like, oh well, maybe I'll play it, pick it
I
up
know
in
that
that
install size is like what
way.
100 gig. Like it's
Yeah.
pretty extensive, but
Hey, it's a good game.
it's a good game.
That's all that matters. So yeah, I look forward to that. Speaking of, I guess games where you can, I guess
Beat people up,
beat people up and shoot
run,
people and steal their cars and
own the
stuff.
town. Make do heists, all this type of stuff.
Yeah. There were whispers, because the Mafia, Mafia, the team that made the Mafia video games, their Twitter posted for the first time in like a couple of years or something like that, and people were like, "Oh, what does that mean? What's going on here?" And surprise, surprise, like they're releasing a Mafia trilogy game with all the previous like Mafia 1 through 3. But the big kind of thing in this is that Mafia 1 is a remake of the original Mafia game that came out from ages back.
Yeah,
So
this should have
people
been
were
like
kind of,
early PS2 era.
yeah, yeah. And the thing is, like, I remember playing that. I never owned. I think I played it at like a friend's house or something like that. But yeah, it's like it was pretty cool back then. And I think, like, I remember from memory, like, it was quite realistic in the sense that, like, oh, if you like ran a stoplight or something, like the police would be on you and stuff like that. There was all these kind of little things here and there. But I remember playing Mafia 2, um, and I loved Mafia 2.
Yeah,
It's such a
Mafia
great
2
game.
was like I'd say is the definitive Mafia game. Um and it just got things better like right from the first game and kind of
Mhm.
made it just a lot better.
Yeah.
Mafia 3, I played that. I thought the shooting mechanics and the cover systems that was a kind of okay, but it was a very to me it was a boring story. And I
Oh
think the
yeah,
second thing
me
is
too.
it was it fell in the trap of it was very repetitive. It was like yeah, I think I had three
Mm.
factions, and you kind of had to do the same thing over and over again. It's like beat people up, find the person, do this, and it was kind of like a kind of a cycle. So
Well, you see
it
that
became
and
really repetitive.
it wasn't really like, it wasn't like Italian mafia, right? Like that's what I kind of liked about the like Mafia 2. It was like about like the Italian mafia. This kind of seemed like, oh well, yeah, you're
In
not
the New
in,
Orleans, like
yeah, you're in
Vietnam
New
era.
Orleans. Is New Orleans like a big mafia, like Italian mafia place? Like
No,
why isn't it
no,
in New
no,
York? Why isn't it
no.
in New
Yeah,
York or
yeah.
whatever?
New York and Chicago. So I don't know. I think it was just
Yeah,
them
it
trying to
really
shift.
confused me.
Yeah, I think it was them trying to shift the direction to it. But
Mm.
obviously, I think people just stuck together with this. Yeah, when you call it mafia, you just think okay, Italian mobs.
Yeah, you think like Gangs of New York, like all these big ass. You think Godfather, right? Like you think all these kind of movies that have like the traditional kind of Italian,
There's hits, there's
Italian American.
mobs,
Yeah,
like always good deals. You betray the
yeah,
family.
yeah. A bit of train family here and there. Like GT. Even GTA. Right? GTA just leaned into the genre. But yeah, this is the thing. It'd be interesting to see whether they, because I think obviously Mafia 3, they probably don't really need to change that much. Maybe like add 4K textures or some shit like that. But it'd be interesting. Obviously they're doing like more or less a remake of Mafia 1. Maybe they might do some quality of life improvements in Mafia 2. Like I think it seems to be like a pretty interesting pick, and that's what we're kind of seeing. We're seeing like the release of a bunch of games that have maybe came from like the 90s and stuff and coming back and remade and remastered. We obviously talked about Resident Evil 2 remake and Final Fantasy 7 remake and Resident Evil 3 remake, and another thing that also got released recently as well is the Halo 2 Anniversary edition. Obviously part of the Master Chief Collection. Halo 2, it's back on PC. People playing the shit out of it. I keep forgetting that these games are out. But
it's like
really
they're
cool.
so good. They're so good. It's just there's so much stuff out there.
Well, yeah, but I just mean like, oh yeah, like the Master Chief, like because I went, I'm like, oh, I wonder how much this is gonna cost. It's like, oh, it's the same. It's the same price. That what is it? The first Halo. Which one was the Halo ODST? That was the first game that came out, right?
No, like as in you mean Halo 1 or like?
No. I just mean from the Master Chief Collection that's coming out on PC.
Oh yeah. I think it was I think it started with Reach. If I was
Reach. Okay, sorry, Reach. Right. So Reach came out, and then maybe it's like Halo. The original Halo came out?
I think so because I've got it obviously on Xbox, but I also bought it on PC. But I haven't been following it. But I would assume they did one. Why on earth would you skip straight to 2?
Yeah, I feel like they're probably doing it like story order, right? Like in a way, like so it's like Reach and then Halo and then maybe
2,
ODST.
then it'll be 3 ODST at the same time. And...
Oh, maybe. Oh, then I don't know because I'm pretty sure people said ODST.
No, ODST comes in the same time as Halo 3.
Well, that's what I mean. But ODST is out, correct? I'm pretty sure. So maybe they're not doing it. Maybe they're just.
I'm not quite sure. Either way, it's really cool to see Halo 2, which I think a lot of people say is the definitive game. Me personally, I think Halo 3 is.
3, okay.
Yeah.
What makes 3 better? What makes 3 better than 2?
First of all, I like the campaign better, and I think the rest of it is just the multiplayer was just. It was the most expansive it ever was. Like you had, the map thing, which is forward, so you create your own maps. You just had a lot more different multiplayer types, and I feel like and I think obviously Halo 2 revolutionized like the online shooter at that time, but I think Halo 3 I think it just added on top of that and just made it like they tweaked it so much to make it like this is the perfect one.
Did they take away dual wielding in Halo?
They kept it in Halo 3, but it was weakened.
Okay.
And I think that was the problem with Halo 2 is that the multiplayer is like you had double needlers who were just like, no, I'm dead.
Double needlers were awesome.
Yeah, so that's why they nerfed that quite low. But either way, having Halo 2 Anniversary on PC, people get to finally play it. I do know that obviously. I think the original Halo 2 came out on PC, like on Vista. I remember seeing it vividly in my mind, seeing a copy of that. But obviously, it's like it's not the new version. And it's really cool because I have played the updated Halo 2 version where they got these graphics made by Blur, the studio Blur. They always make these amazing cinematics. Amazing their story there. They built it up, and obviously, the gameplay hasn't changed, but it's still Halo, and it still feels good. Like I have never encountered first-person shooter to ever kind of like nail like shooting combat, melee combat as well as grenades in such a satisfying thing, as well as jumping. Like it's like the holy trinity of movement where it's like you shoot for a little bit times, someone's shield gets down, maybe you throw a grenade to distract them, and then right at the end you beat them down. I feel like to me like it's such a good gameplay loop. That you don't really get because most games or / shooters, like the melee thing is just a knife. Like it's not like an encompassing thing of the game. But Halo, that had melee, which I think is like it just feels good to hit people.
Okay, so here's the thing. So I was incorrect. So they haven't released ODST. They've released Reach, Combat Evolve, and Halo 2. So
so they must be going story.
So they probably are going in that order. I wonder because I'm looking at the Master Chief Collection. So they've got Halo 4, but they don't have. They don't have Halo 5. So maybe that might be coming out in its own separate release. I just like the fact that these games are on Steam. I think that's cool.
Yeah,
like people never thought that this game would ever come out on PC.
And I feel like we're going to see more and more of this this gen.
Mhm.
Where obviously Microsoft's
Oh,
thing,
especially with Microsoft.
yeah,
Yeah.
Microsoft is going doubling down on like, yeah, who cares what the console is technically, so long as we get the name out there and the player base, like
Mhm.
it's even a good deal. Like obviously Microsoft, the Xbox Game Pass, I forgot how many active users, but I think it's like over 10 million. And it's one of those gifts that keeps on giving. It's like probably the best deal in gaming you could possibly have. Aside from getting free games from Epic. And it's such a great thing. And yeah, I'm definitely seeing what Sony will be doing, because obviously they've touched about it. Like obviously we talked about Horizon Zero Dawn coming to PC, and I got a feeling at some point that like maybe when they release that PlayStation 5 details announced, they'll be like, oh hey, like some of these games are coming out on PC as well. Just to get that, because I feel like the future isn't about the platform per se, but it's about
Service and what you
the service
provide
and
through
games. And I feel
games.
like
Yeah.
I think people are seeing more and more of that. And if they can release to the PC market, they can
Mm.
make quite a bit, because hardware in of itself is quite hard to make, and most of the time you make a loss on it. So you
Oh,
might as well bring
exactly.
out the software out somewhere else to get better reach.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, like someone like people like Nintendo make their consoles like either not at a loss per se, but like maybe at like a slight profit or a mild profit, and that's maybe because like they don't have a lot of hardware issues. Like you said, like if everybody just buys like a PC box or an Xbox box, or it makes it easier to access, but they make a pretty big loss on the hardware and they recoup it later through the software that they make. But in the end, they need the software. And we've mentioned it before that video games are more than likely going to go towards a Netflix style subscription service where people maybe don't own the game anymore, but have access to a membership that they purchase a game. So if we're got like the Xbox, and on that you get like the latest Halo game. Like it's kind of crazy that the anniversary edition is like it's $50 and you're gonna eventually get like 6 games on it. It's like it's such a steal.
It's such a good deal. But even if you get Game Pass, it's like obviously it's free on it. Like obviously you got to pay like $10 a month or whatever it is, but it's like that. It's such a good steal and such a deal. And I'll probably talk about it in later dates. But like I've been playing so many games on the Game Pass, and I'm saving quite a bit of money just having it on. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, I and not only that, but all the Xbox exclusive games launch a day and day on Game Pass, which is like crazy. So I'm gonna be playing Halo Infinite like for free, basically. I'll probably buy it because I want to get the collector's edition. That's kind of my thing with Halo. I've got every single one, so I might as well finish it. But yeah, it's crazy for people who
Finish the fight, mate.
yeah, if they want to play, the games, they can get it for like $10 a month.
Okay, that's interesting. And that's the thing, like with all that, Microsoft's been on like the kind of forefront for it. So it'll be interesting to see going forward what they do. But like another thing that they also are releasing as a remake is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. Like kind of came out of nowhere. And like in the old way, like I remember like watching the game, like I played this game at my cousin's place, and if anything, we played like a demo that he got from like a PC magazine, and we just played the same level over and over again.
Probably the
Um,
same song looping over and over again as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, it was really great, and I love that game. So it's really cool to see that people have been asking for like a, a Tony like a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, because there was like I think Skate. People played Skate a lot, Skate 4, but like obviously people kind of didn't feel like it had the same kind of, I guess, je ne sais quoi, I guess, that
Well, that's the thing.
on
I
the
think
Sony.
that the skate people like they even just I think they just sort of post like Skate 3, which is the last Skate game, came out 10 years ago, had its 10-year anniversary this year. And everyone's like, come on, man, like release the Skate 4, because I think there were hardcore people who really like Skate, because Skate was like a very hardcore good simulator of like actual skateboarding. But yeah, Tony Hawk was like the one where it's like it's the edgy, like it basically it's like what Battlefield used to be versus Call of Duty. Like Call of Duty's the arcadey, like yeah, like we're gonna have this thing that makes no sense, but we're gonna have it because it's fun and cool. Like we're
Mhm.
gonna have like some super jumps and tricks that makes no sense. We're gonna have cool costume characters like Spider-Man, Shrek. I think there was at one point, maybe I know the Doom guy was, and have like this punk slash ska music. That's like
Yeah.
the iconic like late '90s, early 2000s like Tony Hawk. That's what it
Mhm.
was, and bringing that back
Mhm.
for 2020.
yeah, again, like, look, all the stuff that we've said it before, that like a lot of this generation is kind of capturing the nostalgia from the '90s, right? Things that people grew up with, or early 2000s. It's just kind of trying to capture that, and this game was really cool. And like watching, like it, like again, I did that thing where watching this game, it's like, oh, it looks like how I remembered, and then they showed what it looked like before. It's like, oh, this looks like ass, right? Like, and it's the same thing, it's the same thing with for a lot of people with Resident Evil, 2 remake. It's like, oh, this is like how I remembered, but like the game didn't actually look like that in the past. Same thing with Halo, right? Like Halo, the original Halo, looks nothing like the I guess the quote unquote remake, right? The Master Chief Collection version, where it's got all the new like bells and whistles, and it looks way better. But it's updated in such a way that makes you remember how the game looked and how it felt like when you played it back then. And I think,
Yeah, the best part of it is in that game you can press the back button, you can play you can actually switch the graphics
yeah,
on the
switch.
fly. And
It's so
and
cool.
I did play that campaign, just going back and forth, back and forth. I'm like, man, like you like technically if you want to make it easier, all you do is play in the old graphics, because there's like literally like not really any textures. You can just see all enemies from afar. Yeah,
Okay.
it's so amazing how far we've come, you know.
Yeah,
And also with that remake, if you play that on multiplayer, the pistol isn't nerfed, so you can just two headshot people with the pistol. But that's the fun.
yeah, man. Look, man, I had that Master Chief edition on Steam. It's so cool.
Gotta get it.
I probably should. I probably should get it. But anyways, so yeah, Tony Hawk's really cool. I might consider getting it too, because it's been a while since I played I guess like a sport game. I guess it's like, yeah, skateboarding is sport, but I don't put it in the same category as
It's
something
like the
like,
extreme sports, like even like I don't really play sports game, but like
yeah,
I play like SS Tricky, or like like all those,
yeah.
or Amp
That's probably
3, like those types
that's
of
probably the
ones.
best way to describe it. Yeah, I think I like extreme. So like, I mean, I used to play a little bit of like, you see, I like basketball games, but like I only like you know ones that are like kind of over the top and aren't like hyper
NBA
realistic.
Jam.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. NBA Jam. NBA Ballers was one that I played, which was like basically like it was like a 1v1, like 1v1 kind of game that you played against like someone else, which I played when I was younger. A really cool game. Same thing with like racing games. Like I personally prefer like the arcadey wild versions of games, because like again, like I don't like playing like Gran Turismo, but I'll play like Need for Speed Underground. Like that was really cool. Although Need for Speed, I guess, has become more like kind of realistic as well. But like by comparison, like Burnout, I love the Burnout series.
Yeah,
I
like
kind of focus on.
I'm same here. Like the realism thing, it's like it's there for the hardcore people if they really care about it. But for me, I'm just there for the fun times. Like, and I feel like even like the Forza games do a really good job, because they have the realistic sims 1 year, and then the next year after that they do their like arcade racing games that it just goes off the rails.
Oh, okay, yeah. So they kind of do a rotation between when man, I just want a new Burnout game. That's what I want. I
Yeah,
want
like
like,
I haven't played Burnout since Burnout Paradise, and that was like early
yeah,
like
ages ago.
2007 or something. So
Yeah,
like
exactly. It's been a
long
while, so
time.
maybe they might
But
come
that
out
was
with
owned by THQ, so I think, or EA.
something.
Either way,
Yeah, yeah,
that studio's gone.
yeah. But I guess our final piece of game news isn't a remake, but I guess it is kind of harkening back to the original games. It's Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Now, people have obviously seen bits and pieces hinted about this game in, I think, The Division, or is it The Division 2,
It would be
where
the
they had
Division 2. Yeah.
Division 2, where they showed I think like a Norse woman holding like something, and it said like oh, like maybe like the Apple of Eden or something, and it said Valhalla. People are like, oh, like maybe this is like the Assassin's Creed game, and it's based on Vikings, and oh, maybe it's going to be called Ragnarok. But I think they obviously changed the Ragnarok name because of maybe because of
Because
what is
Disney's
it,
gonna be
Thor.
like, hey, we own Ragnarok now.
Yeah, with Thor Ragnarok, and I guess like they are there's been a lot of like kind of focus on North mythology recently, especially with something like God of War as well. That also focused on North mythology, and so they wanted to kind of go with a different name, something that people are less, well, quote unquote, less familiar with, but something that can also grab people and be like, "Ooh, Assassin's Creed Valhalla." So, look pretty interesting. Obviously, we haven't seen like too much like gameplay from it. We just know like it's gonna have ship battles. It's going to have you know a lot of the kind of traditional well, I guess traditional in the sense that they're bringing back insta kills from like hidden blades. Like that's something that kind of was removed from the newer ones. They made it difficult to get like insta kills. Like it has to be like an ability that you had to get.
And even then, you have to like level it up in such a way where it's like that's your main focus. So like that's the like if you're gonna play stealthy, you gotta 100% play stealthy. But yeah,
yeah,
because it turned into an RPG, so it's like, oh yeah, what's the point of leveling up if you can do that? My thing is I do want to see less level scaling. Like I know that it was there in Odyssey, but and I know you can kind of turn it off into a little bit, um, but I want it in such a way where it's like you can turn it off like a little bit more, just so you can actually get that advantage where you just feel overpowered. I kind of miss that in the like remember the Assassin's Creed 2 days where or Brotherhood where you leveled up so much with like your armor and stuff that you could easily just take down like 50 guards without even trying. And these recent ones, they have such a level scaling. No matter what level, it's always going to be at that cap, which I kind of didn't like.
well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, I think the older kind of Assassin's Creed games was just like counter spamming, right? Like, you could just kind of take down like a billion trillion people if you're able to kind of Batman Arkham Asylum everyone properly, right? With this game, like, yeah, with the newer games, you have to like kind of be a bit more aware of like what you're doing. I think the thing is like, so long as like the hidden blade mechanic is still there, you can still kind of play the game without being forced into a combat role if you're clever enough and if you're like kind of paying attention enough. Like most of the time these games give you the capacity to do the things that you do, like rather than you coming up with something creative like, oh, this person's going to the toilet, so I guess I'll kill him there, right? Like it's one of the things that's pre-programmed to allow you to murder someone. It kind of reminds me of what is it, Assassin's Creed France. I don't know what it was called, but I'm just
Unity.
calling Unity.
Assassin's
Assassin's
Creed
Creed France.
France. You're not wrong
Yeah,
though.
whatever. Assassin's Creed Italy. It's all the same, mate. Like with which one? Italy 1, 2, or 3. But yeah, with Unity, like I remember there was like, oh, like you can kill people in like these specific ways, and they're really intricate. It's like in the end that kind of got old because it's like it's kind of pre-programmed. It doesn't feel unique, whereas in the newer games it feels like a living breathing world. It's just sometimes you're kind of forced into a combat situation because your hidden blade doesn't instantly kill the enemy, and that kind of alerts everybody else, and it's not your fault. It's like the game was designed to be that way. So you see, the level scaling part I don't have too much of a problem with if you still have the ability to take them down in a one hit kill setting. Like if you're able to like get the jump on him and you instantly kill them, then I'm totally fine with that. It's just in the end, you want to have that balance between a challenge versus being able to treat everybody like cardboard, right?
To basically be a god, and it's like, yeah, I understand that. Yeah, but going back to the other stuff as well, because it's like it seems like they're coming back to a few things. They said that the world in this game is not going to be as big as the Odyssey, which I think is fine. Like Odyssey was really big.
Huge. It
Like
was way.
I don't know how many hours I put in before I'm like, oh wait a second, there's like, and even then the story doesn't really put you on every single island in Odyssey.
No.
Like you would have to actively look at these areas and everything.
That's what
So
I did.
yeah,
I
it was a
I did
huge game.
everything except I didn't get like the Atlantis. There was like some Atlantis DLCs or something. I didn't do those. But other than that, like I clocked the game otherwise, and did all the stories, assassinated everyone. Yeah, it's pretty good, but it's like a lot of it's just like, is it really necessary? Not all these islands were important from like a story perspective or had something really interesting. I just kind of felt like, oh well, I need to check this off because I need to kill this dude, and since I'm here, I might as well complete whatever stories around here, because they do make a distinction between something that's a story mission versus something that's just like a random
Yeah, like if it's a
fetch quest.
reoccurring quest, like where it just
Yeah,
gives you
yeah,
experience and stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
and it is,
yeah.
and that as well. And obviously, I've heard the mechanics of the game are going to be I guess like you have this town and you have this homestead and you're going to be upgrading that over time.
Mm-hmm.
That very much reminds me, I think, of Assassin's Creed
Number
3.
two. I'd
two,
say.
yeah, two and yeah, like it was like Brotherhood and like yeah, two and that we
Oh
upgraded your
yeah, I
house,
guess in three. Yeah, yeah, I guess in three as well. You do build that little town, the
the
little
homestead or whatever
what-
the hell it was. But yeah, it's gonna be the
homestead.
same
Yeah.
thing, which I can see, which is like like if you're gonna have these armies which like invade you, which is gonna be like the battles in Odyssey. Like you have to
Hmm.
upgrade, like oh yeah, you can upgrade your armor or your weapons or like have these new like things. Like I can definitely see that, and that's like the like good mechanics, but they keep you in the game. Like it's like I don't know about you, but like when it comes to some of these games, I don't have the patience to upgrade the ship, for example, the
No,
100% because
no,
that stuff is like
never.
absolutely crazy to do.
I couldn't. I don't really give a shit about the naval combat aspect of the Assassin's Creed game. Like I get that it's one of those things where like, oh, you built the engine and you built the ability to do this, so we might as well use it kind of thing. It kind of reminds me of how everybody kind of got over the Batmobile in Arkham Knight, right? Like they built the Batmobile, and it's a really cool, I guess, mechanic that you can use. You can drive it around, you can go places really fast, but then you had to use it for like all these like random robot tank battles, and it kind of felt really extra. But it felt like the developers wanted an excuse to use it because otherwise they went through all this effort to just make a really expensive and highly detailed taxi that you drive everywhere. Which, again, I get like. And that's what I feel with all these games. Like, oh, we've got the ability to do naval combat, so we might as well put it into this game. But I don't really care about that. Like with like the moment I got to an island in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I found the tower or whatever, and then I was able to teleport there immediately. I didn't
Never
really
again.
do any, and never had to do it ever again. Other than like maybe any ship related missions I do, but like other than that, like I don't really like the ship battle because it all seems really one dimensional. It's like, oh yeah, shoot a guy enough times till it gets low health, and then you either board him or you
Or you
collect
like
the
ram the
reward.
ship or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it just seems like a lot of micromanaging that I don't care too much because it's not like you see, I like being the assassin, not a pirate. But again, like I like again with what is it, Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Everybody really liked that game, but I feel like it was more like a pirate game than an assassin game.
Yeah, it
Um,
was, and you even like like you didn't really dip your toes into the assassin slash
no,
like Templar thing
not
until
at
like
all.
way later. Like you're
Yeah,
like kind of that neutral 100% pretty much.
and that's the thing. Like, given all the main story and side story games in that game, you can go the entire game without really being a pirate at all. Like I only maybe explored like maybe like 20% of that game's entire map because everything else like in terms of the world map, right? Um, because everything else was optional and not story related, so I didn't do it.
Mm.
Whereas with Odyssey, it's like, yeah, you needed to do all this other stuff, if you wanted to find out the. Although I didn't know that, I was just like, oh well, I'm gonna do everything. But again, the story is pretty engaging here and there in Odyssey. So hopefully, Valhalla brings more to it. Yeah, I think having a big like area for the sake of it being big and just having a bunch of things to tick off a list like isn't really fun so long as they keep it very engaging and the story's interesting and the side missions and the characters that you meet along the way interesting. Like I'm all aboard.
Yeah, I would rather like a dense game with like a cool world, um, with like interesting mechanics and gameplay over just a huge world with being it sparse and not really interesting to
Yeah,
interact with,
quality over quantity,
more or less.
more or less. But yeah, I guess we'll move into some of the things that we've watched the past couple of weeks.
Hmm.
Rick and Morty has like suddenly come back into the limelight during global quarantine. They had two episodes that came out. One which was, I guess it's like a continuation of their, you know how they do like the TV ad episodes or whatever it's called. I forget what they're called.
The space is I don't know. It's something got to do with like intergalactic like cable or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that.
Cable,
I think.
intergalactic cable. Yeah, it was kind of like a parody of, right? Where they're on a plane, on a train, and they're dealing with a lot of like kind of meta storytelling and stuff like that. I really enjoyed that episode. And then I think last week they came out with an episode that was about, I guess, face huggers. Like it was like an alienist face hugger episode, but kind of build up more into becoming, yeah, I know the typical like Rick and Morty, you know, what's the thing that Ryan Johnson tries to do, but then he never does?
Subvert expectations.
That, yeah, that. It was like kind of, the good kind of subverting of your expectations.
Yeah, because
That Rick and Morty does.
obviously what you find out is just like, yeah, maybe like, you know, Rick and Morty, the characters, like meddling up with people's different civilizations is probably not a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I really like this season. Like in general, like all the episodes have been quality, especially after season 3, which was very disappointing. I think there was only like 1 or 2 episodes I really liked out of season 3, whereas all the episodes coming out this season in season 4 of Rick and Morty has been just quality, all of it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well, and it's like I feel like there has been more of a focus of actual, because you know, Rick and Morty season 3 was more like, I think they had a whole thing where like, we're gonna focus more on about like, you know, Beth and everyone more, but I feel like season 4 has gone back to actual adventures of Rick and Morty, and then like maybe some other characters, especially for example like Jerry last season was just like really annoying, to kind of have that there, but like I really enjoy all these characters, like even like one of my favorites is the snake episode, where you know, Morty kills a snake, and you know, what do you call it, a space snake, and then
Space Snake.
and then the
Yeah,
civilization finds out, and then they learn how to time travel, and it's this funny thing because it's not only just snake time travel in their universe, but they also do like, it's like, I don't know, it's just complete Rick and Morty insanity, and it was just like there's just so many good punchlines and jokes in that.
Yeah, they also had the episode where it's kind of like a team up, like I guess an Ocean's 11 kind of
Heist.
space heist team up thing. But again, it's like they just do really good job with. Again, it's like the forefront of like Western animation. And I guess it's also like I guess geared towards adults as well. So
Yeah, because I think the main reason why Rick and Morty does so well is like it does have that animation feel, and it is adult. However, it's not just the jokes for the sake of jokes. Like obviously, you can look at something like, I don't know, like Simpsons or Family Guy, where it's animated for adults and has jokes in it. But I feel like Rick and Morty, yeah, I know it's that very elitist thing, but it has that such thing where it's like a lot of the concepts that it does show on it are very like adult or like mature. That like this could be explored in like a Black Mirror episode, but instead they were just like, let's have a comedic slant on top of it.
yeah, let's take the piss out of this concept or whatever. Yeah, I mean, look, I think to really describe what season 3 of Rick and Morty was Pickle Rick. That's probably explains exactly what it is. Like
Which,
the
by the way,
summary.
I hated, but really a lot of
But I
people
think that's the
liked.
point. I think you were supposed to hate it, but at the same time, that's what the show was. Like it was just like these. It was almost like a parody of itself, and it just wasn't good. And I think at the same time, like I think Dan Harmon was like going through a divorce or something, and so was Jerry. Coincidence? I don't think so.
Everyone
Whereas
was just depressed.
everyone's just depressed. Whereas like with the latest episodes of Rick and Morty, like they've just been all really good. So I'm really looking forward to. Do you know how many episodes are left this season?
I think it's 10, so there's not many
10.
left.
Wow. I don't
So
know. I feel like there's been 5 released so far, right?
yeah,
5?
like I don't know. I feel like it's gone by so quick. Like it's one of those shows where I wish it was had more episodes, but you know, you know, you deal with what you can get, and every episode like this season's been pretty much quality. You know, the sex dragon thing was I think that was maybe probably the lowest point in this season for me, but you know, people
Sex
seem to
Dragon,
like
was
it.
it? Sex Dragon, was that this season?
Yes.
Oh, really? Oh.
See, like it's
Hmm.
one of those things. So it wasn't like it was showing like December or whatever, and it was kind of like, yeah, whatever. But like,
That's true. I'm probably, you see, that's the thing. I'm probably like like remembering like bits and pieces of like episodes that I remember or whatever. So it's like, oh, maybe that was season 3. Oh no, it's this season or whatever. But yeah, so far I'm enjoying what I'm seeing so far. So hopefully they continue to do well
well,
over
yeah,
there.
well, exactly. But I heard in the news that they haven't recorded or done anything with season 5, so it's gonna be one of those waits where we wait like a whole year or something to watch Rick and Morty. Which
It's fine. I'm happy to wait.
there's almost stuff coming out anyways. Like
Well, yeah,
for
exactly.
yeah, well, that's the thing. I've used this kind of quarantine time to actually watch a show that's kind of been on my radar for a while, but I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to start it or not, and that is
Hmm.
Futureman. Uh,
Okay. Yeah, I've
so
heard about this show, but like I never followed up with watching it. So what's your thoughts about it?
I think it's
What's it
pretty.
about?
I think it's pretty damn good. It's a 3 season show. It actually
Hmm.
ended last year. Um,
Oh,
eh,
okay.
yep. So it just follows Josh Hutcherson's character, which is Josh. He's just a janitor and he plays video games. And
Hmm.
he plays this impossible video game, and he finds out that the impossible video game that he's won is actually a simulation, a battle simulation from the future. So essentially, what happens is these two soldiers from the future come back in the past and say, "Hey, you're like the savior of the universe because technically this battle simulation, which is a video game, is technically what's going to happen in the future. So you're going to be our like like a person to lead us through of like how to defeat this alien race." Um,
Hmm.
and obviously it's a it's a joke show because the whole thing is like he's
Well,
really good at this
is it?
he's really good at this video game, but like he's not a general or he doesn't know how to fight. So
Well,
these the people in the future are like, what the hell?
I was gonna say like the plot of this sounds like the book Ender's Game, right? Um,
Yeah, well, kind of, where it's like there's an
well,
alien
yeah,
threat. Yeah.
obviously, as you said, it's taken with a comedy slant, but like the basis is very similar, where like Ender's Game is about a bunch of kids who are trying to become like the like I guess strategists and trying to fight this alien war, but they think they're doing simulations, but in reality they're like actually fighting real wars and people are actually dying and stuff like that. But whereas this is like obviously, yeah, they bring him back and he's just got like no technical prowess with weapons or whatever, but everybody thinks he's the best.
More or less, yeah.
More or
And it follows, yeah. It's really funny because like obviously he's like they make him out to be this loser guy, and then
less.
he tags up with the two people from the future called Tiger and Wolf, and they just they do their kind of adventures, and I think each individual seasons is quite different. Like I think that the first season is very. I think the first season is actually the strongest season. Um, and the first season very much rips on something like a Back to the Future, um, because like what happens is they're just like, okay, we're gonna go back in time to stop this person who invents this cure, but the cure actually turns out to mutate humans, and
Hmm.
that's what kind of starts the whole alien thing. Um, so then they do all these things of going back to the future, or per se, and going back to the past to stop certain events. Um, and I just found it was just really funny and really cool and interesting how they screw around the timeline. They do reference Back to the Future a lot of the times. Like for example,
Excellent.
there is one point where the main character Josh he goes back in time, sees his parents, and actually screws up hooking up with his parents hooking up. So
Oh, like Cockblock's his dad or whatever.
yeah, pretty much. So there's a lot of cool stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff like that. There's even interesting stuff of like what the future looks like as well. Where the president of the United States in the future is actually James Cameron. And he does some interesting stuff with AI and his obsession with technology. I thought that
Oh,
was it.
okay.
So they just do random shit like that. So that's more or less the first season, and I think the second season kind of turns into this thing of like they get stranded in a certain timeline or like time dimension, and obviously they're gonna fix it back the way they want it to be. And essentially it's them, but that season is probably like everyone's kind of split and doing their own thing. For
Hmm.
example, the character Wolf, he basically is just like, you know what, I'm gonna be with this semi old school family. I'm gonna be learn to do this one thing. Um, yeah, and then Josh is basically getting hunted because they think he's like basically in that season he's like a clone, and then finally
Okay.
and then the third season goes completely off the rails where it's like this like random tournament game that they need to escape out of, but then they meet up together, and then they finally actually finish their mission. So it's kind of like it's almost kind of like one big random Rick and Morty adventure where like they start at one point and then they go somewhere in the middle. By the third point, they're just like, oh wait, what were we actually supposed to be doing? And then yeah, obviously the third season they kind of finish that off. Like, but overall, I enjoyed my time with it. I pretty much watched it in one weekend. Um,
Okay.
each episode's about like half an hour each. It
Hmm.
was quite funny. Josh Hutcherson is actually a pretty good comedic actor. I think I need to see him more in more stuff. Like obviously most people know him from Hunger Games, but he's in. People need to give him more roles. And another thing as well is Haley Joel Osment's in this show as well. So if you watch The Boys, he's in there as well. And
Oh,
I think whoever was doing casting for The Boys saw him in Futureman, and they're just like, you know what, we need the
we
funny
need that
guy
guy.
to definitely be in The Boys. So like, and there's interesting things as well. Like even in the third season, you've got what is it? Seth Rogen is in the third season for some reason. So there's just random people are in the show. But yeah, either way, I think this is a very goofy, fun time show. It doesn't take itself seriously. It goes kind of crazy off the walls. For example, the wolf guy, he likes the 80s so much that he wants to stay in the 80s, and he gets obsessed with 80s culture. So there's a lot of different throwbacks of
Okay.
like the 80s, 90s. It just completely I think the comedic timing for each individual character, and there's things, for example, like Wolf is a kind of stupid guy but he's strong. Tiger, she's kind of like the straight man of everything, and then Josh is just kind of the middle guy who just doesn't understand anything but needs to do stuff for the sake of doing stuff. But
Mhm.
yeah, either way, I enjoy the show. I highly recommend it, especially doing this kind of quarantine type season. You can just marathon this within a weekend, and it's quite a lot of fun. So that's Futureman.
All right, awesome. Yeah, I mean, I've had that show on my radar for a while, but I just never followed through with it. So hopefully I'll get around to it soon. But speaking of things set in the future, um, Westworld season 3 finished last week. Obviously we didn't have a show last week, but we have obviously finished watching it. And yeah, what was your thoughts for season 3?
Uh, well, firstly, this show is a completely different show from the concept of Westworld and what it tried to be. People being in a park, having this mystery of the park, um, and I think each individual season has gone way past of its original intent. But I feel like this season is kind of, I think a lot like me and you've had a little bit of disappointment with season 2, but I feel like a lot more people now are having a lot more disappointment with season 3 of Westworld and how it panned out, because I guess to me the story of Westworld season 3 is, it's a completely different show. It's set in this modern sci-fi thing, and it almost feels like this is Terminator, like the next Terminator film. Um, it doesn't have the same DNA as what Westworld felt like. The
Mm.
easiest way to explain it, but I don't like this new version of Westworld. That's the easiest
Yeah,
way to
I mean,
explain it.
look, ultimately the show tried to do it is doing rather. It's kind of like a future cyberpunkish world, but like the world just seems like a modern world. It doesn't seem, it doesn't do like a Terminator thing that well either. I think the thing that I'm kind of disappointed in is, yeah, they kind of concluded with, yeah, there's going to be another season. This isn't the end, which is really disappointing. And look, we're going to be going to spoilers here, but what is it? Maeve and the guy from Breaking Bad, they kind of go off and be like, "Oh, hey, we're gonna go save. We're gonna try and survive this chaos that the world's gonna go through." I think in the end, I was a bit disappointed that they ended up making Dolores a good guy, because the whole
The cop
season was
out.
supposed to be, yeah, it was 100% a cop out, because it's like, oh well, initially I was going to kill them all, but now I've changed my mind, and we're going to try and make a world together where humans and robots can live together. And then now they also have like, Hale, who is a corrupted, well, which is a clone of her, who's now become corrupted and is now trying to be the role that she was supposed to kind of be, like a straight up evil character who's trying to kill all of humanity, right? Like that's what they kind of show at the end of the season. And it's just like, oh, okay, yes, sick. So you're just stretching out the show longer than it needs to once again. It's just really disappointing, because I think if they had just made the show like very much like how they would, like something like a Terminator. The first season is what it is, and the second season is, okay. Yeah, the robots are slowly integrating and taking over society, and it's about either humans accepting them or trying to like rebel against them. They spent way too much time dawdling around and oh yeah, hey, what am I supposed to do here? Oh, I used to be a soldier of war. Like that fucking matters. Like who fucking cares? I don't care about the fact that you were a soldier like many
Well, I think
years
the whole
ago.
bigger reveal is like, oh, your friend who you thought died is still kind of alive, or like
Yeah,
you're the reason why like he kind of died. Like that
yeah,
whole like
but it's like
why
who
though?
cares?
Yeah,
But it's like
yeah.
who cares? But
But
it's like
I think I think the problem with this season, there's so much stuff we don't care about. Like for example, like Maeve, like what was her like motivation this season? Like why was she going after like Dolores
to
anyways? Like it was just
well,
because
they
like I
said to
don't
get
like
it.
you. Yeah.
Well, no, it's because she had access to the kind of the what is it robot heaven that they created in season 2, and that was the only way that she was going to get access to her daughter again. And that's what the human guy, which by the way they did minority, right? Like that's the other thing that I was kind of disappointed with this season. It's like, okay, yeah, cool. So the whole thing of this season is AI gets to determine like, what humans are and what they're going to be, and then are unable to predict humans because these humans are outliers and all of them are rebels. So we got to quiet them up and turn them into sheep. Like I get it. Like it's supposed to be like
It's
how
very generic sci-fi in a way.
like but it's not done in like a very interesting way. Like it's been done before. There's nothing wrong with it. With there's only so many tropes that haven't been explored. Sorry, well, tropes inherently are tropes because they have been explored, but rather there isn't as much like new sci-fi ideas that are coming out these days. They usually like most of the stuff that we're doing is based on the technology that we currently have and maybe an exaggerated form of our imagination and how we can apply them, right? And in the end, like there's nothing wrong with doing like a Minority Report story or a story about like robots trying to take over the world, but like they didn't even do both well in this, right? They had both of these things and they didn't do it well. I think like it would have been far more interesting if this had been its own original show. And it was like, oh, a fish out of water story where this guy is helping out Dolores and he doesn't really understand why, and Dolores just slowly reveals to him like, hey, like your whole life has been pre-programmed, and this is about rebelling it. But then the big reveal is she's a robot, and then he starts to question her motives and whether or not he can trust her because she's got her own ideas about like what society should be like, and is she trying to take down humanity? Because that's the big thing. They show later that yeah, if society goes through with what the new plan was, human society collapses in like 500 years or whatever.
Yeah, and they don't even really show that much. They just show that like the prediction AI machine, they kind of turn it off, or they did in that one episode where like they have like the remote version of that where it just shows everyone's like kind of semi future, and
Yeah.
everyone kind of goes crazy. But you never really see the full impact of that. You probably see like one scene in the last episode of the season where it's like people uprising. And it feels like that's kind of like the setup for the next season, but it's like I just don't know where everything else comes into place. Like, is it like I don't know. To me, the story is just a mess in a way. Even as you mentioned before, of like the big reveals that she's a robot to obviously Aaron Paul's character, but even then they don't really make such a big deal about it. Like, there's a bit where he's about to get shot. She blocks the bullets. Then he just looks in awe, like, "Oh my god! Like you block bullets for me. You must be like non-human." But there's no really explanation or like growth of like these
Well,
characters. Like
but they
I guess there's no scenes where it really slows down. Yeah, I guess to talk
well
about
again,
to
yeah, well
talk
I
about the
they try
ideas.
to they try to distract you with a bunch of but even the things they distract you with isn't that interesting. Like all the stuff with like, oh, it's the fight between Dolores and Maeve. Who fucking cares? The fights aren't even that great either. Like all the choreography is really lazy.
Yeah,
Especially given
I
like
did not like any of the fight scenes in this season at all.
even there was like a scene in the final episode where the lights turn off and it's Maeve like slicing down everyone. Like that they like people might not know this, but this is like a very lazy technique that they use in order to kind of have like an action scene without showing too much because everything's in the dark and all you're seeing is gunshots here and there and knife sounds, sorry, like sword slashing sounds and stuff, and then the next moment the lights turn on and everybody's like dead around you. Like, yeah, it's a nice kind of bit to kind of show like how powerful someone is, but it's like again, it's showing rather than telling, right? Like I get it, but throughout the whole show, like Maeve and Dolores are these kind of overpowered like machines. Like even in the last fight between Maeve and Dolores, like at the factory or whatever, where Maeve also has like a giant like machine gun turret or something. Like even that wasn't that great either. Like that's the thing. Like it kind of seems like all the action and stuff is like again, I'm not even necessarily wanting quote unquote all this action happening here and there, because if the story's good then the action can come secondary to that, which is fine, but even the story isn't enough to hold the things together. So I feel like they use the action to distract you from the kind of really surface level shallow story that they have in place about, well, humans are also like us because they don't get to choose their destiny, but by destroying this thing they'll be free. And
And it's almost like, yeah, it's like who are you gonna trust? Like you were all robots slash being controlled, like us, like we were. Like I can understand like the parallels that they were trying to do.
yeah,
I just think it
again,
just wasn't really done that well. Um,
again,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
or smart, I
I,
guess.
I definitely, yeah, I'm totally with you. Nothing that they present is anything that's like super duper big brain, like, yeah, we get it. Like all the stuff that you're presenting, we get it. Once you revealed it, like the whole thing about, oh, is Dolores evil? Isn't she? Like, well, it doesn't really matter because the end result doesn't, like, it was a cop out anyway. But then even the end result wasn't something that was like, let's say she turned out to be evil. What a fucking surprise, right? Surprising absolutely no one. There wasn't any kind of thing that happened. And even they didn't even use Arnold in an interesting way either. Like, what happens to Arnold this whole season? There's like one interaction that they
Yeah, he just follows it with the bodyguard guy just
yeah,
around, but
and
always fail at stuff. But they never really achieve anything aside from right at
yeah,
the end, which is the post credit scene of like they're somewhere in the future, with the dust or whatever. But that's a
yeah,
like that's just a tease of
but yeah, but the actor doesn't really do anything in the show, really. In the grand scheme of everything, there's not much that really happens. And
or
it's just
like
a
they
disappointment.
didn't even stop anything.
Yeah, and again, I still don't understand why Maeve is supposed to be some kind of whatever the creator's favorite or whatever. Like, doesn't make
Well,
any sense.
and that's the thing. It almost feels like it's the other way around because it isn't like there was one point where Dolores is like, "You're all like me," because you all
You're
have
all like me, yeah, yeah.
pieces of me in it. So I'm like, okay, you're
Yeah.
probably maybe I don't know the first one
Yeah,
that
she.
will
I think that's what that's what the implication is. Like when Maeve calls her out on wanting to replace everybody with copies of her, she says like you're all copies of me. I was the original. But obviously, as the reveal is, she doesn't want to replace everybody. She wants to actually like bring all the people who went to robot space heaven to come back and live among human. That's like her goal. But the thing is, like they kind of describe, it's like one of those things where this part's a little bit like Terminator 2, right? Like the thing that happens with humanity collapsing is going to happen. So or you're only delaying the inevitable. Like it's one of those kind of things that's happening. So now they're just letting humanity like crash and burn for a little bit, and it's all about picking up the pieces and seeing what and trying to fix everything. But there's also robots, right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, again, the whole Hale story arc, like I get it. She's supposed to be Dolores, but less corrupted and less less corrupted and less empathetic, right? And very uh like robots first. It just sucks that also they killed man in the
Man in
what
Black
character?
William, like,
Man in Black.
and
Yeah,
I've talked about that before. He's the best character. Like, he's the actual
yeah,
one
but
that
they
I cared about him. I cared about his story, where he was going, and
yeah
then clearly, obviously, like he gets pretty much killed. There's
yeah
no other character development going forward because future him is just an android or whatever, the host, and that's it.
yeah.
Like that's it. There's not going to be anything as far as I know. There's going to be introspection of
You
him.
see, this is what's gonna be. It's gonna be like, oh well, the Man in Black's character obviously has to be the Man in Black, and then he's gonna like think like him, and then have a redemption arc, and maybe he'll be good again, and it's gonna be that kind of bullshit. Again, this show should have ended a season ago, and it should have, uh, I don't know, been better. It just should have been better. Like, it's just such a disappointment. Well, it's not like a Game of Thrones level disappointment, but I think I already had that disappointment with season 2 because
Well,
of
that's the
how.
thing. It's getting to that point. It's getting to that point
Yeah,
where it could be as bad as a season 8 of Game of Thrones, where
yeah, but I mean,
where
but it's
like
like,
jumps of logic of characters doing one thing to another thing. Like it's already pretty bad, but
yeah, it is bad. Yeah,
but you could easily see it being like all of a sudden like Maeve going really bad for some one reason, or like skipping certain things because we want to get to a certain point. You can see this. Yeah, that's my problem and fear of this is that, for example, we waited like what 2 years for this. It wasn't even a rushed job like it was in Game of Thrones. This is just bad though. They just have clearly have a goal in mind, or a story in mind that I think a lot of people don't like to see. Like this is not, I think, what a lot of people are seeing, and what I've seen even reviews is this season's the worst reviewed season. And especially the last episode, I think, of this season, a lot of people did not like. Um,
oh really? People didn't like the last episode?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. So
Really?
at least we're not 100. Like, obviously, it's like probably maybe a quarter or a third of people don't like what happened in this kind of season. But I feel like
Hmm.
it could grow easily and a lot more because this show is getting into a different place. Like, set up for season 4. Like, are you even excited for season 4? Because or
Not
like
really. I might not even watch it. Like,
because
that's
to
the
me,
thing. Like,
the show is very convoluted and like for what it's become. But not only that, but
mm,
like future reason. Like, okay, so we know there's some stuff in the far future. All the main players, we all know they're hosts now, and so essentially all that it
uh,
really is just a battle between, I don't know,
hosting human.
hosts who care about humanity or not. That's really it. Like
Yeah.
there doesn't seem to be any new future human characters. Like Serac in the season was like he
Well,
like
he's probably coming back.
well,
I'm
yeah,
assuming.
possibly, but he seems to be the only person who has like something going on. Everything else is very shallow.
Guess. What
Yeah,
about Aaron Paul's character? Like, I guess he's like the only human character that anybody
yeah, and
knows. But
of course they give him the decision of like you can choose whatever you want. So like I don't know, man. I just don't know about this show anymore. It lost its interesting like of what it was doing, and now it's just a very
Mhm.
okay, bad, generic sci-fi thing.
It's just a shadow of what it was before. And it's such a shame because again, first season was really good, and I think like if it ended on that, it would have just been like would have been known as like a really good TV show. But unfortunately, as a I guess like a body of work, um, yeah, I think overall it's not that great. I think the same thing with like a lot of shows seem to kind of disappoint if you don't follow through. I've been meaning to watch also like another show which I'm totally blanking on at the moment. The hacker show, um
Mr. Robot. Yeah.
Mr. Robot. I've been meaning to watch Mr. Robot as well, season 4. But it's like I kind of feel like that too. Like I feel like people have said that season 4 is really good. You've watched season 4,
Yeah,
right?
I think it's better than season 3. Yes.
Yeah, but it's like season 3 like just burnt me out like so much because of all because again it just tried to be convoluted and all over the place, right? And I think it loses a lot of goodwill. And I think this if people didn't lose a lot of goodwill from season 2, they definitely have lost it from this season of I was going to call it Game of Thrones, but Westworld.
It might as well be. Like, you know what I miss? I miss Teddy. I miss James Marsden. I miss this like Western thing. I miss the technology, I guess, of kind of the parks and how the parks rule, and how everyone interacted with them, and having this kind of like, yeah, I miss that. I
Well,
miss that
yeah. Well, you
rather
see,
than just whatever it is now.
the show used to explore the human condition in the frame of I guess, people interacting with hosts not being quote unquote human, right? And that's what made it interesting because it's like, oh, how do people respond when they know they don't have consequences to their actions? Turns out humans can be really shitty people. But then it's just like, oh, now humans are really simple and you can predict them. And now it's, oh, well, people are so simple and predictable. They put it through an algorithm and now we can determine what you are. And we're trying to stop the human apocalypse. Like, it's again, low IQ. I have no interest in really following this going forward, but we'll see. Maybe they come up with something good, but I don't know.
I guess
I'm
we have to
holding
wait
my
like
breath.
2+ years for that.
Yeah, probably. So
There's better sci-fi stuff coming out in the future. So yeah,
exactly.
season 3, disappointment of Westworld. Yeah, it lost its luster.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's us for this week. Remember, you can always listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Libsyn, and we stream live on YouTube in our YouTube channel, Marketing Movies. So until next time, maybe Henry Cavill is going to be in Westworld, but he's probably busy being Superman. So until next time, see ya.
Gotcha.